In this video, we will deploy the Azure Application Gateway with backend pool. But before doing that, let's understand the intention. What is that we're going to do? We're going to deploy one virtual network and 3 subnet within it. The first one, my test VM subnet, we will use to host the test VM. This test VM will have a public IP address so that we can RDP into that particular VM, and this VM we're going to use to hop on to the my web 1 VM and my web 2 VM, just to make sure that we adding a IaaS role on the my web VM 1 and my web VM 2. All right, and then we deploy the application gateway in this particular subnet called my AG subnet. And once we deploy, we will add the backend pool to the application gateway, and then we will use the public IP for this application gateway and access this web servers. Okay, now we can use my test VM subnet only when we need to troubleshoot if there are any issues. Otherwise we don't need to log in to this machine during the demo, because some of the I address, and I'll get on the portal and briefly explain what exactly I did as part of this particular architecture to save up some time during the demo. All right, so let's get on the portal. I'm on the portal. What is that I did? I created one resource group called RG MyAG. Then I created one virtual network called VNet AG test. And within this particular virtual network, you can see that there are 3 different subnets. One subnet for the application gateway, one subnet for the backend, and one subnet for the test VM. All right. And then what I did, I deployed 3 VMs as well, as seen in the architecture. Test VM has a public, but remaining 2 VM doesn't have a public IP. All right. And then what I did, I logged into this particular VM and I hop on to this particular VMs and then did the IaaS configuration. It is exactly the same thing that I did, which we have seen in the load balancer demo. So I do not want to repeat that one. It's the exact same step where I enable the IaaS role on both the servers and then disable the firewall. All right, that is a preliminary things that I address. Now, what is that we're going to do? We're going to create the application gateway, which is the things that we want to put a focus on in this particular demo. So let's select application gateway. Let's create application gateway. And we select the resource group that we have, and we name this application gateway as my AG. Select the Australia East. We're going to choose the tier as standard V2, but there are 3 different tiers, So we stick to standard V2. Enable auto scaling. If you don't want auto scaling, then you can disable that, but you need to provide the instance count, right? So in our case, we go with this one and we say 1. And we go to 3, just to make sure that we are not spending too much money on this demo. And then availability zone, based on your use case, based on your solution need, you choose that one, right? IP address IPv4, or you can have a dual stack, means IPv4 plus IPv6. In our case, we go with the IPv4 only. This is okay to enable. Now select the virtual network. And within this virtual network, that is a subnet where we want the application gateway to be deployed, right? Front end, choose the public IP. We don't have. What is that we're going to do? We create a public IP, my PIP1, something like that. And we select that. That becomes our public IP, but you can have private and both, depending on, the tier that you select, you can choose one of them, so we go with the public, but you can have private as well, right? So we choose public in this case and move to the next one. Here we add a backend pool. Let's name this one as my backend pool. All right, and add backend pool without targets. We can do that and we can come back later and add a server to it, but we just going to go ahead and add backend servers at this time only because we got a backend servers ready, right? If you don't have those servers ready, then you can come back and add later as well. So we got virtual machine and select first one, web one, and second one is also virtual machine and select that, right? Target type, what are the target type? Take a look. You can have IP address, you can have virtual machine, you can have VM skill set, and you can have app services. Okay. We're not adding a lot more complications by having a multiple target. We just going ahead with the VM because it's easy to understand the concept, right? Then add the backend pool. Then next configuration, we already have a backend and now we have to add a routing rule. What are those routing rules? Let's make sure that we name this my routing rule, something like that. Priority something 100, right? Listener name, something like that. Just put it. Port 80. We can't do this once we say that we want to do this. That means you have to have a certificate as well. All right. You can get the certificate in the Azure itself, not a problem at all, but again that would increase again the complexity of a demo. So my suggestion would be you give a try by having your own certificate as well on the application gateway, and ensure that you can work with the certificate also, right? But let's stick to the HTTP. In this particular case, we're not going to add that complications here. The listener is basic, that's fine. And then backend targets, right? Backend targets, we select the backend pool and here backend setting. We don't have any backend setting, so let's create the one and we call it as backend setting, and that looks good to me. And we just add it, right? So we got a backend setting and we say add, right? So we added a routing rule now. Here we don't need to add anything. We go ahead and say review and create. All right, so let's make sure that the validation is passed, because once we say validation pass, it looks good. And now hit create. So let's ensure that the gateway is being deployed now. Our gateway is ready. Let's go to the application gateway. That's the resource group. We would like to check some of the things on gateway. So we have the configuration. This is where you can go to manual mode or auto scale mode. This is where you can do the configuration of the instance count after the deployment. We didn't deploy any kind of web firewall. Upgrade to the WAP tier to increase your app security. We're not applying anything there, but this is how you can do that, going to the WAP tier. Backend pool, we got one backend pool and we got a 2 VMs in the backend pool. We can see that we got a backend setting. This is where some of the setting that you can implement, such as cookie based and the connection training that we discuss, and this is what that setting is. And then we got a front end configuration. You can see that we got a front end configuration, one PAP, listener is listening for that particular front end configuration. We did not do any kind of SSL setting in this particular case, but you know how to do this one. Just make sure that you got a certificate. You can have that certificate in the key vault and you can refer that key vault, to access a certificate. We got a listener here. That's the listener. And sometimes, this is where you need to understand rightly, because some of the ciphers, Cypher Suite, this is called Cypher Suite, and some of the Cypher Suites sometimes creates a kind of problem. So you might want to choose the Cypher Suites which is going to work with your application actually. All right, that's the thing. We got a rule. the rule is very simple. In our case, it's a listener name, is a basic type rule. Then what is this one? Backend health. Are we getting something from the backend in this particular case? Just want to make sure. Let it pop up. See that both the backends are healthy in this particular case and receiving 200 status code, which is a success. This is very essential. You should have a 200 status code from the backend. Only then application gateway can redirect the traffic there, right? Health probe, in this particular case, we don't see anything. That's it, right? So let's go back to the overview. And what is that we're gonna do? We just pick up this public IP address and get into the browser. Let me type that address. Let me remove this and let's see what happened when we visit that particular one. All right, so we landing on web VM1. And if we recycle, can we go on a second one? There you go, on a web VM2, web VM1, web VM2. So our application gateway is working absolutely fine. The way that we have done the configuration for HTTP, we are in a position to reach out to the 2 backend pool that we have added here. All right. That's all pretty much about the backend pool. But the most important thing is that you, as a network professional, what is essential to understand is one, web application firewall. So my suggestion would be sure that you testing some of the web application firewall concepts. And the second thing is that you should know how this certificate is going to work. So make sure that refer some of the, I think, tutorials available on the internet on my Learn website from Microsoft, and you should be in a position to do some kind of the SSL implementation as well. That means SSL termination will be done on the gateway and the traffic will be passed back to your backend pool, right? Those kind of things you have to practice. It takes a time to show in the demo actually, but this is the very generic concept of using application gateway and sending to the backend pool. You can also think about testing the path-based routing, such as like for images go to one pool, for videos go to another pool, right? We discuss those things. That also can be done, and that is where rules play the role, so you basically create a different types of rule and then redirect to the specific backend pool. You can create a multiple like backend pool as well, right? That's pretty much about the load balancing option in application gateway and all about application gateway.